And that's recording. 2 seconds. Start recording on, whoops. Make sure that's on. Make sure it's public. And then we're going to go live there. And let's just see if that starts. And it does. It does start. Hey, everybody. This is Glenn here at H2O Studios. That's Public Square, Watertown, New York. It is a Tuesday. What's today's date? The 25th. Of May, exactly 1 year ago today. Do you know what happened 1 year ago today, Oz?
And what was that?
I could tell you this. It's George Floyd.
That was my first guess, yep.
Couldn't breathe. And as a consequence, with his death and others that ensued, the world changed, and the reset button is still setting to this day. But you know what, Oz? We're not here for that reason. We are here today on Public Square at H2O Studios to once again talk about pop culture, movies, iconic people, Saturday Night Live, other interesting things that happened in the best century ever, the century that we're from, the 20th century. I'm Glenn Curry along with Oz from 94 Rock. It's the second time you've been here. Last time we talked about 80s and all types of stuff. Now, one thing that you mentioned when I was here with Keegan, he was here twice. So now you're tied in that category, Oz. We were here and we had a question that we couldn't figure out, and you answered it. What exactly was the question?
I was watching the video with Keegan,
Yeah.
and you were asking him, you were trying to figure out who was the musician sitting in the stairway with John Belushi on Animal House where he smashed his guitar.
Right.
And the answer is Stephen Bishop.
Stephen Bishop is the answer. So, okay, so that was a couple months ago. We were talking about Saturday Night Live even then because Stephen Bishop showed up as a was he a
I believe it was a musical guest.
Musical guest.
70 something.
Right.
And it had to been when the one that his biggest hit On and On was on the charts.
On and on.
Which was, I believe, 77 was the year for that song.
Was it really?
And
That makes a lot of sense.
Next year would have been Animal House.
Animal House was 78.
Stephen Bishop's also on the soundtrack of the movie because he sings the theme song to the movie.
I didn't know that. He's
the ending theme of the ending credits.
Oh, the Mole House.
That's Stephen Bishop. Yeah.
That's Stephen Bishop. I did not know that, Oz.
Yep. And the little jingle that plays when they're showing the couples in the car.
Yeah, right.
He does that too.
Yeah. So, and you know what? It's funny because it's lighthearted music.
Yeah.
They look at these drunk guys going on a field trip in a Lincoln Continental. You scratched my brother's car. Stephen First, no longer with us.
Right. I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No.
Oz didn't know.
Stephen First, really?
Not only is he not here, he hasn't been. He died like 5 years ago. I would have to look it up, of course.
Did you ever see him as kind of like a zombie humanoid?
You know what? I can honestly say
he was in a horror movie where he played.
It shocks me. Okay, and this is a good way to start because Stephen First was a very good actor as Flounder. There's no question about it. He had the look. He had the size. He could have been a John Candy. He really could have been a John Candy. But the problem with Stephen First is he didn't go anywhere. I don't understand that.
No.
Tom Holtze, who would later go on to be Mozart in Amadeus, and he did other things. But other than Amadeus, he didn't get anywhere. I mean, if you think about it, did he win Best Actor for that?
Well, when F. Murray Abraham won Best Actor for that, he played his nemesis in the movie.
Right, exactly.
During his Oscar speech, he said to the effect of, only thing that would make this better if Tom was standing right next to me.
And you know
tonight.
what? I can't believe, I get it because he was his nemesis. He had a big part in that. You got to give it to Tom Holtze. Am I saying his name right? Holtze?
I've heard it I've heard it as Holtze,
Holtze, whichever. Fantastic in Amadeus. Needless to say, Best Picture. But he didn't go anywhere. See, the other guy that really, Tim Matheson, I just thought was, and when I went to see Animal House, I'll be real quick about this. I just thought it was just going to be John Belushi being John Belushi because he was such a sensation in Saturday Night Live. But Tim Matheson is the movie, along with the guy who played Boone.
Peter Riegert.
Yeah, and he was in another movie with Burt Lancaster years later called Local Hero. Not to mention, he was in The Sopranos. He had an on-again, off-again role as a politician in New Jersey.
Do you remember an 80s comedy called Up the Creek?
Yeah.
Tim Matheson and Stephen First.
Yeah. Oh, really?
They're both in it.
I did not know that. And Tim Matheson also played the bad guy in Fletch. With Chevy Chase. Bad role. He shouldn't have taken that because that took him off. He was a comedic guy. He was also in A Little Sex.
I remember that.
And I met the little girl in that movie. With the daughter, because I was living in Connecticut at the time, and I was working at a video production company. We were looking for someone to do a commercial for I forget who, and she was one of the contestants. She told me the whole movie and how they did it and all that stuff. So it was really cool. And I don't know if anything happened to her career.
And like after a while, Tim Matheson ended up being like a TV movie staple.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
guest shots on different shows.
And now
almost all the way out of features.
Yeah, I just there's a lot of people that just should have made it. Stephen Furst is one of them. Tim Matheson. Again, they had careers. They still have a career. I don't know what Tim Matheson is doing today. I know he's a bleeding heart liberal. Some of the stuff he says about Trump is disgusting, but that's par for the course. But there's a lot of people that should have been somebody. Tom Holtze, whichever, should have won Best Actor for that. F. Lee Abraham, I mean, what can you say about that guy?
And that was, this is funny because I was just reading stuff about that movie yesterday.
Isn't that something? Yeah. Let me just tell you a little story. Recently, Kirk Douglas came to mind, and I was thinking of Stella Stevens and Andrew Stevens. Did you know that Andrew Stevens was Stella Stevens' son?
I did know that.
I did not know that. So Andrew Stevens, another guy that should have been a big star. He married Kate Jackson from Charlie's Angels. He was a great-looking guy. I thought he was British. Was Stella Stevens British?
Not that I know of, no.
Yeah. And, of course, she played Linda in the Poseidon Adventure. My Linda!
And she was the main lady in Nutty Professor.
In Nutty Professor?
Jerry Lewis, yeah.
Oh, with Jerry Lewis? I did not know that.
And she looks great. It's like 1963, and boy, he was good. He was, brilliant to pick her out because she was the perfect look for a leading lady at that time.
Oh, let me just tell you something. When she was wearing nothing but a man's T-shirt or a dress shirt, more than likely Ernest Borgnine's in Poseidon. That's all you saw her in. I mean, 1973. You see her. You see the girl that played Nancy Drew. And the son. He was in a ton of stuff, TV shows and so forth. One of the greatest movies of all time. But again, the girl who played Nancy Drew, we didn't see much of her. And for that matter, Susan Day from the Partridge Family. She went on to do L.A. Law, and I thought her career was going to come back after that. So it's never a guarantee, particularly with women, Oz. It seems like once they hit 35 years old, you don't see them after that.
Pamela Sue Martin was Nancy Drew.
Okay, gotcha.
A couple of TV stuff. She did a feature in the mid-'80s about, I think, cocaine addiction. It was called Torchlight. Came out in 1985. Remember seeing it on the video store shelf.
Yeah.
And after that, pretty much kind of faded away.
And you know what? She did some nude shots. I remember her, from Playboy. She was pouring milk on her naked breast, and I thought that was
another
amazing.
movie, The Lady in Red.
Okay.
That was like a starring role for her in the late 70s.
Oh, now who's saying Lady in Red?
Krista Berg.
Krista Berg. One-hit wonder?
Pretty much.
Okay, so.
He had a couple other things, but not as big as that one.
All right, so the one thing we wanted to stress, of course, was Saturday Night Live, and yesterday and today, and of course, Elon Musk hosted it this past, 2-3 weeks ago. It was a
big ratings.
Ratings were off the charts. Since then, they haven't been. You said you liked the person that was on there this past week, but here at the end of the day, it's gotten way too political, Oz. I mean, again, not to talk about politics and whatnot, but to me, it's a shame because when it started in 1975, they made fun of everybody. Anything didn't matter. Gerald Ford. It would be Jimmy Carter. It would have been anybody today if they kept that same format. And they got a lot of material to work with.
Oh, yeah.
And the one thing, Oz, that I definitely think that they could definitely work on is just how ridiculous it is for this whole new way of talking to people, he, they, him, her, binary, all this. That's a bit waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But they won't do it, Oz, because that will go against their
They were
principles.
catching a lot of fire for, not going after Biden.
Yeah,
the way they did Trump for so long.
Right, but you know what? This past weekend, for a very brief moment, although the headlines was like this big, Pete Davidson makes fun of Chrissy Teigen. It's like for one word, a big deal. But, people like Chrissy Teigen should be taken to court on Saturday Night Live, like they used to with Dana Carvey making fun of Eddie Murphy and his career, and he got upset about that. I don't remember he said
David
something.
Spade made
David
fun of him,
What did I say? Dana Carvey? David Spade, sorry. I mean, not for nothing. I get those two mixed up. One dynamically different, but they got the blonde hair, and they were the pesty guys on Saturday Night Live years ago. So they should have more of that. Late night TV. Steve Colbert should be doing more about it. He could have a field day with Joe Biden, just going up and down the stairs to Air Force One. You don't want to make too much fun of the guy, but you got to do something. It's so painfully obvious how biased they are in the last.
Like they had Alec Baldwin playing Trump nearly every show.
Right, every show.
The cold opening every week. Then remember they had had Jim Carrey playing Biden.
Yeah,
for about 6 weeks or something.
Yeah, and that went against all their principles because I just don't like it. Every now and then to bring back an alumni from the show to do somebody is fine, but Lorne Michael did it way too often, and that's a kick in the teeth to the people that are there now. I mean, I'm sure there's a guy that could play Joe Biden. I'm sure someone is, but I don't know who that is
because they don't want to do it. They had one of them do it after Jim Carrey's little contract was up for 6 weeks or something. He only did it during like the election season. Then it was another guy from the regular cast who was playing him.
Right, and then no more. No, I mean, I don't see.
He did it like once.
Yeah, so. What does that tell you? I mean, here it is. That you're supposed to be there to make fun of life, make fun of politics, make fun of the world, and yet they choose not to.
They could have brought back Maya Rudolph a bunch of times to play Kamala Harris.
Yeah, right. Which makes a lot of sense. She's probably the most. I think Maya Rudolph was probably the most talented female they ever had.
Daughter of Minnie Riperton.
Yeah, and who is she? She's the one who's saying
"Loving You." Yep.
Wow, that's talent right there. I mean, it's no wonder she's as good as
I was thinking about that recently, about like go through your rundown of who you think the most talented people to be on the show.
Saturday Night Live?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go
like from beginning to now.
From beginning to now.
Who do you think were the best to ever do it?
The best one ever to do it. I'm gonna go out on a limb only because
you can have more than one.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm going to say Eddie Murphy was the number one talent.
I would say that.
I'm very disappointed with a lot of his choices in the 90s and the 2000s. And you mentioned it earlier, the Nutty Professor. I mean, those were ridiculous. Dr. Dolittle. And he just got he got too cool. He did another 48 Hours where he flipped around in a bus like 16 times and he's still in an Armani suit with not a speck of dust on him.
Yeah.
That I noticed that right away. I said, okay, now you're being way too smooth. You're supposed to be raw, just like his video, just like the name of his album, but he wasn't. And then he started doing romantic comedies and Boomerang and all this shit.
I mean, he needs to get back to the wisecracking, fast talking Eddie Murphy from the early 80s.
Yes, he does. But you know what though? We age and we're not as good looking as we are. He's gained a ton of weight. We do that. I did. I mean, blah blah blah. He's lost it. I mean,
he's like 59.
Yeah,
or
he's
60
my
now.
age. Yeah, he's like a year older than I am. But again, a major talent. And the reason why I say he's the number one guy because he brought it back. Now the show is back by default because it's just it's a love fest with the media. It's something that the Sunday morning shows can show excerpts from the very next day and relate to it and laugh at it on a Monday morning. Aren't they so funny? So there's no criticism of it. And remember, back in the days, not only was there criticism about Saturday Night Live, but then there was also whether or not you were going to survive and make it to the next season.
Yeah.
And that was always out on the table. And Lorne Michaels, set that up because these are hungry, young artists that have to work to prove their worth. And we're just not seeing that anymore.
What some people don't realize is that when Eddie Murphy came along, he was 19.
19 years old.
And it was not under Lorne Michaels. It was under a lady who was producing the one season after Lorne Michaels left.
Right.
And it's also figured as the worst season ever.
Yeah, and you and I talked about that, and there was a big fight one night, and Lorne came back within mid-season, came back and has been there ever since. But no one can possibly say that was the worst season. Nobody can say because the last 5 years have been the worst seasons.
It goes from 75 to 80 with Lorne Michaels.
Right.
Then the other lady, I think her name is Jean Doumanian, was part of his regime.
Yeah.
But she got the job to be producer.
Yeah.
And that was when the cast was redone.
Yeah.
That's where you got Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah. Right.
Before Gilbert Gottfried was what we know him as now.
Right.
He didn't do that voice. He didn't do the squinty eyes.
So in other words, he was just being a
regular
an actor.
comedian. Yeah.
You know what? I'd like to see him talk that way because I would like to know how he talks.
And that way, they were all one season. Most of them were fired at the end of that season because Charles Rocket said the F word on live television when they were doing the good nights. Charlene Tilton was the host from Dallas.
Wow.
And it was in the midst of that Who Shot JR fever.
Right.
And
4-0.
the idea was that Charles Rocket was shot on the show.
Okay.
And he came out in like a wheelchair at the end of the night and said, I want to know who the F did it.
Oh, okay.
And apparently the director stormed out of the control booth, so that's the end of live television.
Really? So they thought at that point it was over. So then that's when she was replaced once again by Lorne Michael, or was that
Dick Ebersol?
Dick Ebersol.
Now those are the years Eddie Murphy flourished.
Right.
Dick Ebersol years.
What years are we talking about? 1980?
Jean Doumanian was 1980, like fall to spring of 81.
Right.
She actually led Eddie Murphy on the show.
Okay.
As a featured player, didn't do much of anything at all, just a background guy.
Right.
And then they added him as like a extra cast member. He got promoted from featured player to cast member.
Nice.
Then she was fired, and Dick Ebersol took over, and that's when the real Eddie Murphy years started. 81.
But
around
was
there.
was Lorne Michaels back at that point too as producer?
Lorne
So
Michaels had nothing to do with the show.
So, I'm sorry. I thought Lorne Michaels came back after the. Okay, I'm sorry. So how long did Ebersol keep on the show?
I believe it was 81 to 85 because Lorne Michaels came back in 86, I believe it was.
Okay.
The Eddie Murphy years have nothing to do with Lorne Michaels whatsoever.
Isn't that something? And you know what? When you go back to those years, so they also include the years when Billy Crystal was there, when they Anthony Michael Hall.
That was Ebersol.
Was Ebersol
Ebersol
as
was
well?
Billy Crystal. He
Yeah.
brought in Billy Crystal, Harry Shearer, and Christopher Guest.
Yeah, and then
Martin Short.
Who was this really skinny guy? Tim Hall was his name.
Rich Hall.
Rich Hall. Was he on during episode?
The next year when Lorne Michaels came back, that's the Anthony Michael Hall,
Okay,
Robert Downey Jr.,
gotcha.
86.
Yeah, and so here it is. They're bringing back a semi-established people that weren't.
They also
that we
consider that
knew.
to be one of the worst
Yeah,
seasons ever.
I agree.
the Robert Downey Jr. season.
Yeah, and the opening
Randy Quaid.
Yeah, Randy Quaid was part of it, and the opening credits were Rich Hall would hit the Empire State Building to turn the light.
Right.
It just wasn't the same because the original ones were done right on Times Square when they had the one message board over there where the ball drops, and it was crude, and then Dan Aykroyd drinking out of a bag. So that was. It was crude, it was raw, but that's what you expected at 11:30 at night.
It seemed like dangerous comedies coming.
Exactly.
Is what it gave the idea of.
And then you go back to this crazy, brick buildings and neon lights, and it's like no.
One with
that's
like
not-
the Billy
that's not
Crystal year. He only did it one season.
Yeah, good.
And
you
it was
shouldn't have
like-
done it at all.
It was either him or one of those guys that they look like they're washing their back with a brush in a bathtub for their
right.
down
For the opening, yeah. So awkward times, but still awkward now. And again, it's politically. We can talk every day, forever about how political it's gotten. Michael Che just hates America, in my opinion. He certainly hates white conservatives. But that takes away from what comedy is. When you and I talked about stand-up comedy being dead, our own comedy shop here in Sackett's Harbor is closed. A lot of other clubs have been closing over the years, not just because of COVID. It's because the whole culture has changed. There's one guy online that I see. I forget his name. It's unimportant. But for the most part, it's just his act is just him being heckled and him responding politically to people that don't agree with him, on that platform. So that's not comedy.
No.
I mean, the days, and I like how Jerry Seinfeld is saying, comedy is dead. He doesn't say it in those words, but he's concerned. I think a lot of people are concerned. Chris Rock even said recently, another guy from Saturday Night Live, who wasn't that good in Saturday Night Live, but had a much bigger career.
Yeah.
That's no doubt, Oz. Chris Rock had the biggest career after a not so good career as a not ready for a primetime player.
He came in 1990, the same year Farley was hired.
Right.
Fall of 1990, and Chris Rock made a joke. Somebody said to him on the street, "Hey, we didn't even know you were on Saturday Night Live." And he said, "Yeah, neither did the writers."
Yeah, right. Yeah,
He complained that he wasn't given enough stuff. They wouldn't work with him. They didn't understand his humor. And if the writers don't work with you, you pretty much aren't on the show.
You weren't on the show, and that was for a lot of people who fell into that category. Again, it was a tough act to follow.
But if they like you
Yeah.
and can develop something with you,
Yeah.
like a recurring character,
Right.
you're golden.
But then why is a guy like Pete Davidson on there?
That's my next question.
Yeah, why is he so big?
Okay, he may be a fine stand-up.
Yeah.
But
is he though? I mean, I don't know. I've never seen him.
I've heard Lorne Michaels say that what will get you hired is if you do good impressions.
Yeah,
He does none.
that does none.
If you do great character work,
Yeah.
from like if you were a Second City person
Right,
or
right.
a Groundlings
Right.
improv person.
Right.
Pete Davidson doesn't come from that either.
No, not at all.
He's only a stand-up.
Right.
But I heard if you do get hired without those other skills,
Right.
Lorne Michaels calls it original thought.
Yeah, right,
You'll
right.
be hired for original thought.
And that's like an Andy Kaufman type thing. Although Andy Kaufman did great impersonations, he did great stand-up, he was very talented. But he had original thought. There's no doubt about that. As far as Pete Davidson is concerned, if he didn't look like Pete Davidson, he probably wouldn't be Pete Davidson. So his look really has a lot to do with
Which is
his
a lot of his
success, too.
act, the way he looks, his
he was saying this
problems
past,
and
people could still recognize me with a mask on because I had those eyes that looked like I just got out of bed and I haven't
Yeah.
slept for 4 days.
Right.
And it's true. And then, like I said, he said something about Chrissy Teigen and, okay, all right. So a little bit of controversy there, but not like it used to be. when the show was very critical of the world, of the celebrities, and just culture in general. And just unfortunately, Oz, a lot of information, a lot of available material out there to jump on the Joe Biden. You could, they kind of make fun of Kamala Harris to some degree. I mean, there's a lot more material there. They're just not doing it because they refuse to.
They were bringing out. Remember, they were bringing out Larry David as Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, right, exactly. And you couldn't have picked a better guy to do it. But I think everyone could do it. You just have to talk like this, okay? If Republicans want to be with us, that's fine. If not, we'll do it ourselves. And he's just an annoying guy. Okay, other people from Saturday Night Live that have made it. We mentioned Chris Rock, and the other one is Dreyfuss from Seinfeld. She was on the show.
She was on it during the Eddie Murphy, the Ebersol period.
You're right.
I believe she was on 3 seasons. I think it was 81 to 84. She wasn't on it very long. She was 20 years old when she got on the show.
Wow.
Just a year older than Eddie Murphy was.
Wow.
They had and Brad Hall, who went on to be her husband, was also on the show.
Interesting.
He was the guy that did Weekend Update.
Yeah, right. Are they still married today?
Yes,
Oh,
they
were
are.
good for them.
Amazingly, they are.
Yeah,
For
in Hollywood.
30-some years.
Right, and not only that, but he must be a house husband because I haven't seen him do anything in Hollywood. So she's making all the bucks, right?
And apparently she was already rich because her father was rich.
Yeah,
he invented something.
I think it was it Post-Up Notes, or am I mixing him up with
she came
Nesmith?
from money.
Who's the guy? What was his first name? Nesmith from the Monkees. His father.
Oh, Michael Nesmith.
Michael Nesmith. His father created Whiteout, or his mom did. Yeah, so he had money from that. But I mean, who uses Whiteout these days? But that was obviously enough to keep him going. I believe he died. Is he still alive, Michael Nesmith? I know. Davy Jones died, but I don't know. We're going off the beaten path. Okay, so.
Julie Lee Dreyfuss.
I mean, obviously, Seinfeld career. I mean, if she didn't do Seinfeld, we wouldn't know who she. We wouldn't even know she was on the show.
People don't even know that she did SNL before Seinfeld.
Not to mention, you mentioned earlier. You just mentioned him, the creator of Seinfeld.
Larry David.
Larry David was on, and he got fired. Essentially,
he was a writer.
He quit. Yeah. He explains the story on Stern or one of those shows. How he just left and walked home.
Yep.
And then told his friends, "What happened?" "Oh, I quit." And I go, "What? You shouldn't have done that." And then sure enough, he went back. And I don't know, because he's a member of the tribe and whatnot, but he got back and they let him back on again. But
that was Ebersol years.
Ebersol was working. So again, guys like Larry David and Chris Rock, their time came later along with Dreyfuss, because maybe the writers just couldn't relate to them at that point, because Larry David had yet to prove that Something About Nothing, the Seinfeld show, was worth $1 billion. So until you prove yourself with a bit and you're just an annoying, neurotic Jewish guy from New York, that's funny. But, Woody Allen took care of that years earlier.
Oh, absolutely.
So they just couldn't fit him into the show. But then the other thing was, who was the guy? I'm forgetting his name. Curly hair, he's got the big scar on his. He did more cowbell.
Oh, Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell. Thank you very much. How can I forget Will Ferrell's name? But Will Ferrell was just annoying.
Probably one of the biggest careers to come off SNL.
Right. And that's why I bring him up. No doubt about it. Will Ferrell, I mean, it used to be Eddie Murphy. John Belushi would have had a much bigger career, although he made bad movies up until his death. But still, he would. And Dan Aykroyd had a good career.
Belushi was going to be the Bill Murray part in Ghostbusters.
And that's what I heard. I also heard he was supposed to be in something else. I knew
he was going to be the Chevy Chase part in Spies Like Us.
That's what it was. Yeah, which was a lousy movie.
Almost in every Aykroyd movie.
Terrible movie. Yeah.
If he had a co-star, it was already planned that Belushi was going to be that.
And it's just like it comes to mind right off the bat. The Sunshine Boys with George Burns and Walter Matthau. George Burns wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be Jack Benny. Jack Benny died that same year, 1975.
And George Burns wins an Oscar for it.
Yeah, and he was great. He really was. One thing that if you watch that movie, I believe you and I have talked about this before, look for something called the microphone. See this right here? The microphone. You got to watch it on widescreen or a big screen. You don't watch it on TV. And by the way, another movie you never see on TV.
No.
It was also a play. So obviously by Neil Simon, but it was the microphone appears in that movie almost as much as Walking Tall did, and that was shot in Tennessee or something. It was really bad.
I always meant to see the Sunshine Boys, but I never have yet.
You've never seen the Sunshine Boys?
No.
Wow, you should see it.
One where he's just never on TV, and if I
on TV.
find it in the store, I'd get it, but I don't see it there either.
You got to get it. And by the way, the unsung hero in that movie is clearly Richard Benjamin. Richard Benjamin is the nephew to Walter Matthau. Oh no, to George Burns. And the way he struggles to get them together, they were all vaudeville acts years earlier, and they didn't get along. And then they're putting them together for this TV show on CBS, whatever the deal was. And I tell you, Richard Benjamin, again, he later became a great director, did a lot of good things. But he's the guy. And it's very similar to how we were talking the other day about Betty Davis talking about Tom Cruise being the standout performer in Rain Man because he had to play against Dustin Hoffman's
That's one of my favorite performances is Tom Cruise in Rain Man.
And Rain Man, how frustrated he gets when he wants to go to Kmart to get underwear, and he doesn't want to get on a plane, and he's just... When Betty Davis says that he should have gotten the recognition, more so than Dustin Hoffman, that's when you start listening, because obviously she was the queen of everything.
Because if people are a fan of Rain Man, focus next time you watch it. Focus more on Tom Cruise than you do Dustin Hoffman, and you'll see what acting is supposed to be.
That's acting right there. Not to mention he still looks great. The guy just doesn't get any older. But he's still 5'6". No, just kidding.
Yeah, like me.
Sorry, no, because when you look at a guy like Tom Cruise, he's just bigger than life, and it's just like, but that just goes to show. And we talked about this, Oz, the other day. You weren't here. I have someone come here every Thursday about shorter actors. Alan Ladd, short. Montgomery Cliff, of course, Tom Cruise, many others, and women especially. When my wife and I stopped off at Saturday Night Live back in 2001, a month after 9/11. We walked right past the cast, and we swore they were all munchkins. They were all
really?
They're all of them. What's his name? Sanchez, the Latino guy.
Horatio Sanz.
It was Gone Nowhere, by the way.
Gone Nowhere, and I never understood what was good about him on the show. No recurring characters. Nothing that stood out.
Well, he had one recurring character. It was he played a girl. My name is Sam. I forget what it was. I'm Kathy or something like that. But yeah, it was bad. There's no doubt.
I mean, a lot of time broke character on the live sketch.
Right. And he was terrible with cues. He missed his cues all the time. He's like, oh, my line. I think it's because he was the token guy.
That's what I think.
That probably had a lot to do with it.
I think.
They needed to get someone like that, and that's the best they can do. He did have a recurring character. He did a pretty decent Elton John. I thought his Elton John was
he also did Ozzy Osbourne.
I think he did Ozzy. Did he do Ozzy Osbourne?
A couple of times.
So, but nobody's worse than the Asian guy they have on there right now.
Bowen Yang.
Yeah, is that his name? What's his name again?
Bowen Yang.
Owen?
Bowen.
Oh, Bowen.
Bowen.
Yeah, and of course, who could forget the obligatory fat woman who's 80 Bryant, who did lose weight recently because she has her own Hulu show, and that's the kiss of death.
She's been on there quite a while now.
She has.
But I mean, untalented. I know one of your favorite guys of the last few years is Keenan Thompson.
Yeah.
I think he's been on there too long now.
Keenan Thompson.
I mean, exactly right. I was just thinking about this the other day.
I was just going to... You're sick.
Right. Most of his work on there now is him reacting.
Yeah, right.
To the joke.
Just like, and they hand him...
And if you need a game show host, he's the guy that plays the game show host in every sketch.
That wasn't even close.
Exactly.
And that was my Bill Cosby. I
mean, he's a talented guy, funny guy, but does he need to be on there 18 years?
No. But again, Oz, here's the problem. Talent is thin at all levels. At the political level, the fact that Kanye West is an icon in the music business right now, that Drake has more hit songs than Michael Jackson did. Drake? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
The guy talks about how he comes from the ghetto and this and that. He comes from rich Arab. He's not even black. He's Arab, for crying out loud. He's taking advantage of hip hop from the culture because of the color of his skin. He's completely untalented.
He's Canadian.
Yeah, he's from Toronto.
And he just won on the Billboard Music Awards the other night.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Artist of the Millennium or Decade or something.
And then he was at the finals when Toronto won up against Curry and the Warriors there, and he was a real badass.
And if I remember right, I think he used to be
didn't like that either.
He used to be on Degrassi Junior High.
Oh, really?
The Canadian teen show.
Was he? Yeah, Degrassi Jr. That was a good show. He was on that, huh?
I believe he was.
I'm sure he was. I'm sure he got his start like Lady Gaga was in The Sopranos as a young actress.
Right.
So anyway, okay. So
Keenan Thompson.
Too
many years now.
Too many. Remember, he was on Disney. He was on a Bigger Burger, whatever the name of it.
Good Burger.
Good Burger.
He starred in Fat Albert.
Yeah.
Bill Cosby's in the movie. This is before all the stuff came down.
Right.
Keenan and Kel on Nickelodeon.
Right.
Okay, fine. Move on to SNL, but too many years on there now.
No.
He's been on there since like 2000.
Well, who was it? What was his first name? Meadows. Remember, he was on there.
Tim Meadows was on there for like almost 15 years.
Yeah, long time. And I just think that I don't know. There's a lot of things I could say, but we're online, so we gotta refrain. But they got to get someone to replace him. They got to get the next Keenan Thompson and let him move on. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think the show has evolved to the point where it just can't cancel itself. Back in the day, there was some talk about some markets weren't going to carry it. This is when TV was relevant. The networks were more relevant than they are today. And it's just going to be that fixture that no one's going to compete against, including Fox. Now, recently they tried. They did. Of course, ABC did Fridays. Fox did Mad TV.
Yep.
With Artie Lang and all that stuff. It was good. Little bits here and there. Some of the stuff was really good, actually. But
some of it was good, just not live.
But now it's like there's such a huge. It wasn't live. There's such a huge void that the SNL isn't picking up. You don't want to go compete against them at the same time. But what Gutfield's doing, Greg Gutfried, he's competing with the late night guys on Fox cable, Fox News cable. So you lose a lot of audience right off the bat. You're not a network, so you're competing against Stephen Colbert, Kimmel, and Fallon, obviously. But you're starting in half an hour earlier. This is what Stern did when he had his show on Saturdays. Maybe he had this Howard Stern show against Saturday Night Live, and his ratings did better in that second half hour.
Channel 9 show.
A Channel 9 show. Sorry. One of the funniest shows ever.
It absolutely was.
And in major markets, particularly in New York, the ratings were off the charts. So in a similar way, Gutfeld is trying to do the same thing. And already, I recognized this last night, he's running thin. He's running thin. His writers suck. He's got bad jokes starting off the show. His own people aren't laughing at him. He's got the circle jerk thing going on there, all sitting around. And then they have the obligatory wrestler there, I forget his name, who talks way too much. He's not on there all the time. Then they get the girl that looks like Kennedy, but it's not, with the big glasses. She's about 50 pounds. So it's good. I like the forum. It starts at 11, but that eats away at, you're not going to see the first half hour because a lot of people watching late night news or their local news. So the thought is like they're going to carry into the 11:30 and reach that conservative market that's being missed. And I love the effort, Oz, but no, Fox is a network. They have to restructure their programming to get local news on at 11 and come back with a late night feature at 11. They're never going to do it.
Remember, Fox also tried years ago in the 90s. It was a Roseanne-produced Saturday night show called Saturday Night Special.
Okay.
Trying to do a Saturday Night Live type of thing with a full cast.
How long ago was this?
Mid-90s.
Was it really?
It was called Saturday Night Special, produced by Roseanne.
Yeah.
And it was Fox's, I believe it was before Mad TV.
I'm sure it was.
And it obviously didn't last very long.
No, and who could forget, of course, like we mentioned earlier, ABC did Fridays. And you may not know this, but ABC also had a Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
It was with Howard Cosell, and it was shot in the Ed Sullivan Theater, which later, of course, became David Letterman's theater, which is, of course, where Stephen Colbert is. Not now, until COVID is over. He's doing it in his house. By the way, that was a horrible show. They had the Bay City Rollers out for the first episode. I don't know if you remember. 1975. So you had two live shows competing at the same time. And they had essentially the same name. One of them was Saturday Night.
NBC,
the other one was,
Saturday Night, yep.
And then the other one was Saturday Night Live. And no one knew anything about Saturday Night Live. Everyone knew everything about the Ed Sullivan Theater. They knew about Howard Cosell and that this was going to be a variety show. By the way, it was on at prime time. It wasn't on at late. And then this other little sleepy show comes on at 11:30 with this guy by the name of John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd and Gilda Radner. And of course, Chevy Chase.
The smallest cast too.
Yeah. By the way, the guy Daryl Hammond is the announcer that took over for Don Pardo.
Right, he does it right now. Yep.
He does every voice in the world, but he doesn't do Don Pardo. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if they can get him Don Pardo?
Best Phil Donahue I've ever heard.
Yeah, I'm sure, and no doubt. And by the way, Daryl Hammond played right here. I know someone who had sex with him. He played here at Sackett's Harbor back in the early 90s.
And he was part of when they revamped the show. I think it was the season of '95 is when they recast everybody. That was the Will Ferrell, Daryl Hammond, Sherry O'Terry.
Oh God.
He came with that group because the season before that, '94, also considered one of the worst seasons, was the one with Chris Elliott.
Oh,
and
yeah,
Janine
right,
Garofalo.
right.
Michael McKean from Laverne and Shirley was a cast member.
Right.
They all did it for one season.
Lenny.
It was regarded as one of the worst ever. That was also Farley and Sandler's last year before they got fired.
Isn't that
94.
Something? So, I mean, obviously a lot of a lot of lean years, but again, that's when they attacked. That's when they were criticized. We're just not seeing that anymore. I mean, there's some bits that are just like so lame they shouldn't have been made, And then the next day in the New York Post, someone would say, "Did you see Saturday Night Live last night? What was that?" You won't see that anymore because it's not cool to condemn the show that is, for the most part, a vehicle for the left. So you can't condemn anything that they're going to do or not do. The girl that was in, for instance, the girl Elliot's her name now. She just changed sex from a female to a male. She's
Ellen Page, formerly
yeah,
Ellen
now
Page.
she's Elliot Page. I don't know why I'm going off into this, but again, this is there comedy there? Yeah, sure there is. You could do comedic. We used to talk about the famous tennis player back in the '70s, and she wrote a book. And she was tennis without balls because she went from a guy to. She wrote the book, but whatever, jokes about like that. Elliot is a man now. You wouldn't know it that she was a woman, and it just boggles my mind where the potential is to at least do parody on life and make fun of it, and they just won't do that anymore. Us.
I have the book called Live from New York, a Saturday Night.
Yeah.
Thick book.
Sure it is.
And it's
Sure
not an author who researched and writes the book. Every page is quotes in right from the cast and staff members' mouths.
Really?
The whole book is
The whole deal.
And Chris Elliott, who was established before this,
Yeah, you're right.
from David Letterman's show,
Yeah.
and his own Fox show, Get a Life.
Yeah, and his dad, of course.
Yes, Bob Elliott. And so I was surprised that he got on SNL that late in his career,
Right.
because he wasn't an up and comer.
Billy Crystal's the perfect example of a guy that shouldn't
absolutely.
have been on that show.
Oh, absolutely.
No way. You don't put Billy Crystal on there. That's absurd.
This was after Soap. This was after
Right. He was a stand-up comedian
Yep.
in the
HBO
70s.
specials.
He actually admitted that he would lived in Long Island, apparently. He would go to the Merv Griffin show, the taping of it, and they did that in a theater. That was a hard show to watch, by the way. It was the most boring talk show ever. It looked like, every time I see Casino with Robert De Niro when he tried to do the talk show thing.
Aces High.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. It looked like the Merv Griffin show. But Billy Crystal would be in the audience and he'd purposely laugh or cough at a certain time so he can hear it during the recording of the show. So
Wow.
that's how Billy Crystal was a narcissist back in his day, and he couldn't wait to be on TV. Thank God he made it to television. He did very, very well on Soap and other things. He did great movies. Now he looks like Sam Jaffe from Dr. Kildare show. But no, again, he's talented and whatnot. And he is talking against the woke society too. And I noticed of the only group of people in Hollywood that talk against what's going on right now are our age or older.
Right.
Have you noticed? There's very few people that are younger that are talking against this. Some African American, celebrities, hip hop stars, and so forth, but not enough because this is a big takeover. The reset button happened during COVID. It was happening before that. We just didn't realize it. Now comedy's dead, Oz. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Well, Chris Elliott made a good point in the book. Okay, like we say, he's already established comedy performer, known from television and whatnot.
Yeah.
He gets on Saturday Night Live, and he finds himself, he said, sitting in a goofy costume that took an hour to get into to be in the sketch that airs at 10 to 1.
Right.
And that's the only thing he was in that entire night.
Isn't that something?
Like, he gets reduced to that.
Yeah. So he did. So he wasn't happy.
Wasn't happy at all, and he
Wasn't
says
happy.
a lot of it he can't even remember.
Why? Because he was ashamed of
He
himself,
says
or
like,
he was
Comedy
drunk?
Central will show the reruns,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he says he don't even like his kids seeing what the
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
idiotic stuff he was doing, or
Yeah.
the bad quality of the writing.
Yeah.
It was all very lowbrow. It was very like sophomoric jokes that season, all sex related.
Yeah,
Like,
and-
the easiest joke you could go for was
Right.
what the writing was that year, that season.
And again, there was a guy that was a stand-up comedian just recently. He was at a club that obviously was filled with people. And whenever you see a comic act on stage in recent months or the last year or so, you assume, oh, this was done some time ago. But this one was done recently. He got dropped by his agency because he was mocking the guy that introduced him. He was an Asian American guy. They said, "Oh, put your hands together," and there's, "Oh, look for the Asian man." I said, but that's the reason why I bring that guy up is because that's easy comedy.
Yeah, you're right.
That's Mickey Rooney stuff from Breakfast at Tiffany's. I
still can't believe that.
If you do that, obviously you're going for the easy laugh.
Yeah.
And if you're still doing that, then you're a fucking fossil. You have no idea what the hell you're doing. So he got laughs from the audience because everyone's got beers in them. It's that kind of awkward, bunch of white people anyway. They didn't know. It was probably out in the Midwest. Nah, just kidding. Probably was. And he was dropped. So
Yeah.
again, while I love comedy. I think everything should be where it used to be. We have to draw the line. And a perfect example of that is to watch the Dean Martin show. Or for that matter, just watch any given Johnny Carson show from the 70s and 80s when Nichols, Don Rickles came out. Uncle Nichols.
Well, it's funny you mention that because last night I, for the first time, watched the John Landis directed documentary, Mr. Warmth, the Don Rickles Project.
Really?
Hour and a half long, feature-length documentary all about Don Rickles.
How long ago was that?
I think they did it in 2007.
Okay, so it's not that
2008,
old.
no.
I would love to
I found it on
see
YouTube
that.
for free.
I got to find that.
In its entirety.
I got to
watched
find
it last night.
But you know what I'm saying? Because, some of the stuff that he said about blacks on the dais when he was on the right to Wilt Chamberlain's face. The guy's 7'2". He could crush him. Hey, big guy, hey, brother. Whoa, yeah. Want some watermelon? I mean, some crazy shit that they were saying. So, yes. Were we out of line? I mean, it wasn't me, but was I out of line for laughing at it, not understanding the severity of it? Yeah, no doubt. Did I know it was wrong? Yes, but I still laughed at it. So when they talk about this culture of understanding and white fragility, you should understand. I understood that years ago. That was wrong.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me that now. You don't have to remind me that, just, hey, Glenn, I know what your ancestors did 2 centuries ago, so shut the fuck up. I said, no, you're just trying to remind everybody what the country was, not what it became. And to do that, that's just a good way to say, I know you shot someone 2 weeks ago, so don't you ever say anything again. It's just a secret that they know about us. And we're not responsible for that stuff at all. Not at all. And so they want us to be held accountable. Sorry, I'm off the beaten path once again.
But even on the Don Rickles movie, Chris Rock is on there talking. They talk to all kinds of celebrities about Rickles. And he says he was never offended by anything he said to the black culture. He said he wasn't offended. Chris Rock was.
Really? Interesting.
Because he found it, he did it so well that and you knew it wasn't coming from a hateful place.
Right.
Because he made fun of everybody.
He made fun of
every race, every ethnicity, whatever you want to say.
Right, including the Jews.
Yes. Yeah. And nobody was, if you took it that way, then that was not the intention.
No, and I get it. And it's just
and it was very offensive.
It was very.
You can listen to it now, and you're like, eesh.
Oh boy, it was really bad. But here's the other thing. I don't know if you've ever been at a party filled with African Americans in the same room, bad mouthing each other. It doesn't get. That's the worst. Don't get involved there. You will be crucified because they are really tough on each other.
It shows him on stage, and he pretty much attacks every ethnic group you can imagine just by pointing them out in the audience.
Does he really?
And the people are all laughing.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
But it's every race you can imagine. He goes right after all of them.
So the most annoying guy to be interviewed in any given show, other than Robin Williams, was Jim Carrey. Robin Williams.
The host didn't have to do a thing when he came on. You ever see him on Letterman? Letterman just shut up for 10 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Robin Williams.
And Dave could go take a nap and come back.
Oh, it was annoying. You know who was annoyed with him was Hugh Grant did a movie with him 9.5 months, 8.5 months, whatever. What was it?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
9.5, 8.5.
Whatever it is.
And they asked him, how was it working with Robin Williams? And how he looks. Well, it makes me want to drove me to drink. And I don't think the guy was kidding. I think the guy was
probably not.
Because whenever they interview Hugh Grant or a lot of those British people, they tell it like it is. They're actually very forward and rude about it. They'll be rude.
Sure.
He was rude to Letterman after he was on with Leno. He's like, I don't want to talk about that anymore. That's just the way they
just
are.
listen to any of the Monty Python guys get interviewed.
Yeah. Oh, any one of them.
Like that.
Yeah, right. They're all like that because it's a European thing. There's just they don't mean to be rude. It's like New Yorkers. They just are. But there's nothing worse than someone that is a narcissist. And Jim Carrey is a narcissist. There's no doubt about it. And what's his name? It's the second time this week I've been discussing him. I forget. Who's the guy who played Executioner's Song?
Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones was in the Batman movie.
Yes.
And they were both villains in whichever one. I think he played False Face or whichever.
Two-Face.
Two-Face, sorry. I don't remember Two-Face from the TV show. Do you remember I remember False Face. It was scared the hell out of me. I forget who that actor was. But anyway, Tommy Lee Jones, he's an old school actor.
Big time.
He hangs out with Robert Duvall. All those guys, they call each other Bobby, not Bob or Robbie. That group of guys.
Bobby Duvall.
Bobby, yeah. I was with Bobby the other day. Every outhouse, hen house, dog house. And then freaking Jim Carrey and him are paired up in the same movie, and that didn't go over well at all in his book. But that's why, and then other people were pissed off at him because when Jim Carrey played Andy Kaufman, Man in the Moon, he just says, "Don't talk. My name is Andy. I'm
ridiculous.
I'm not Jim Carrey. I'm Andy." It's like, shut the frig. He's from Canada. He gave his girlfriend herpes. She later committed suicide. He hasn't been the same since. He was an artist. Somehow or other, he was living down in Greenwich Village a couple years back. He was painting murals on the walls when he wasn't supposed to be. The guy really lost it, Oz. There's a guy that just loved attention.
As far as I remember, did audition for SNL and did not make the cut.
And did not make the cut. And there were others that didn't make the cut, too, that over the years, I forget. And there was a woman that didn't make the cut that went, oh, I know. She was in Ghostbusters. She was the big girl. She didn't make the show. What the hell's her name? She's McCarthy.
Oh, Melissa McCarthy.
Melissa McCarthy. She tried.
You know what's funny is, okay, you got Steve Carell from The Office, right?
Yeah, yeah.
As far as I know, he auditioned and didn't make it, but his wife did.
And who's she?
Her name is Nancy Walls, and she was on for one season, and I believe it was 95. This is the Will Ferrell season, Daryl Hammond.
Yeah.
She was on for one season. That's Steve Carell's wife. She made the show, and he didn't.
Isn't that something? And they're still together right now, Oz?
Yeah, she also made guest appearances on The Office when that was on.
What, and, when people are looking at it and back at the camera? I never got into the show.
She played the real estate agent when he was looking for a house on The Office, and that's his wife, and they're still married.
All right, so Saturday Night Live, 46 years. They just ended the season this past Saturday. It's going to continue forever. I only hope that someone can counteract it, either that or late night TV. Fox is the only one to do it, or someone says enough is enough. We're not making any money at the 11:30 hour anymore. We don't care about the woke nation and all this other bullshit. Let's go in the other direction. If I'm an executive producer for any one of these networks, I just see opportunity. I say there is an incredible audience that's not being tapped into either. Saturday Night Live, we go against them directly, or we go against the 11:30 slot or 10:30 in Midwest, which way it works, where we attack them with this. Gutfeld's not the answer. He's already showing he's too weak to do it. It needs to be a variety type of show with musicians, so forth and so on. And with a talk show panel like we have here. And they'd make money on it because at the end of the day, it's just like Michael Jordan said when people asked him about his politics and whatnot, he says, Republicans buy sneakers too. And what he was saying is you cater to everyone to be a good businessman. And that's what they have to do.
So do you think Lorne Michaels has to call it quits before the show will end?
No, he never will. We talk about narcissists.
He's almost 80.
Yeah, and again,
if he isn't already.
I don't know if you've ever seen. Go online. If you go to YouTube and look up Lorne Michaels, he had his own variety show back in the '60s. He was also a writer for the Sonny and Cher show, Smothers Brothers, one of those two.
Yes, he was.
And there was a lot of politics back then in those shows. And Smothers Brothers was canceled for that reason. The network didn't like the direction it was going. So they got rid of him. But Lorne Michaels had his own variety show. And again, not to base things on anyone's career, particularly in the early part of it, because you're going to make mistakes.
He was in his early 20s then.
It was horrible. I mean, even for the 60s. I mean, a lot of that stuff is unwatchable. You watch Rowan Martin's Laughing right now, and it's just not, you can't watch it. It's just, unless you see Goldie Hawn's skinny, bony body there in a bikini. But other than that, there's nothing to watch. And this was that type of style. It was 68, 69, somewhere thereabouts. And it just wasn't funny, but yet he was at the right place, right time, Oz.
So, I mean, I was thinking nobody else is going to take that job. If Lorne's got to say, it's over.
Well, no, I agree. You know I guarantee you it's going to be like a Michael Che. They're going to give it to, like, LeVar Burton's going to take over Jeopardy. They're just the whole reset button is like, okay, it's your turn. We fucked everything up.
It's like they're going to want somebody who they consider very, very smart, very, very, like a Tina Fey. I mean, if they're going to try to pick a new executive producer, if the show's going to say Lorne wants to retire and get out of it, Tina Fey is probably the best choice.
She is, and it's funny because that's pretty much a character from 30 Rock, right? When she was the producer.
Plus, she already worked on the show. She was already head writer, first woman head writer, as far as I know.
Right. And then ultimately, she would put the blonde with her too. What's her name?
Amy Poehler.
Amy Poehler. So yeah, it's definitely going to be someone, an alumni or someone from the cast that's going to get that coveted job. But he's not going to leave. It's no different than Mel Buster.
I don't know why he'd want the aggravation of producing that show like he does at his age.
I don't think he's producing anything. Again, when it comes right down to it, guys, you have guys, like Martin Scorsese. He's not doing anything. I know a guy that was in a movie called Vinyl, the HBO story. It wasn't a movie; it was a miniseries. It did terribly, but he went to Nassau Coliseum to go with that. And he said, "Did you see Martin Scorsese's?" No. Well, what did you do? He said, well, we had all the scenes of everyone walking into the theater and the guy gets on the stage. And I said, well, where's Martin Scorsese? Well, now he has people doing that for him. He probably has the vision. Yeah. But he's not doing that stuff. And I don't think Lorne Michaels is doing
once in a while,
anything that's just showing up and just being Lorne Michaels.
Well, when they pull a camera shot back from the set, even still, when they go to commercial, sometimes you can see Lauren walking on the set.
On the set.
During the live show.
Well, I never noticed that before.
Once or twice.
I should.
He still does it.
I'll be on the lookout for that. But again, it's not just Saturday Night Live, Oz. That's lost its luster. But it's an institution in our book because it was something to look forward to when you weren't 18 yet, and you were at Saturday night. You're with your mother, your dad, whichever, your brother or sister, if they were home, and this is something that you looked forward to.
Oh boy, I sure did.
I looked forward to Johnny Carson every night. I looked forward to David Letterman almost to the end because he started going in that direction too. But now it's unwatchable. I just can't watch it.
Because I was only in like first grade during the Eddie Murphy years.
Yeah, right.
But when I was 15, I was obsessed with it.
Yeah, sure.
I looked forward to it all.
You
week
knew the
long.
host. You knew who was going to be on the
knew
musical
the host.
guest.
This was when I became obsessed with the show.
Yeah.
This was the first year Farley and Rob Schneider, David Spade,
Right.
they all came on.
Right.
That was the year I became obsessed with it. I had to see it every week. I looked forward to it. I thought about it all week.
Isn't that something? And let me ask the question: Do you think about it like that now, or do you think about it but not that level?
Think about it, but not at that level.
All right. So then, what's missing in your opinion?
Missing is the breakout recurring characters that you had back then, where
Right.
you'd see them every little while. They don't have that anymore.
Right.
Where a church lady,
Right.
Matt Foley,
Right.
When Chris Rock would do the Dark Side with Nat X and stuff like that.
Wayne's World.
Wayne's World, perfect example.
Wayne's World was.
I think one of the best sketches Mike Myers ever did was the Scottish guy, all things Scottish with the store.
Right. If it's not made from Scotland, it's crap.
I mean, it was so good.
It was good. And then John Goodman would host it at least once a year. He doesn't do that anymore, it looks like. He's pretty much out of the picture, too, these days. Not that that matters. And then, of course, Alec Baldwin took over. Again, the reason why this went south, in my opinion, is because they lost their narrative. They lost their platform, and that was make fun of everybody. But instead, they jumped on the bandwagon against the right, and they just can't seem to jump off that thing. And if they did, or if someone does...
Like you have, like we discussed, A.D.
COVID-20
Bryant
now.
not doing
Yeah.
any sketches with Elon Musk
So
because of her beliefs or whatever.
Here's A.D. Bryant's impersonation. This is her character. You talked about Chris Elliott earlier having this little bit role and hardly on the show. Same thing with her. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
One, no recurring character.
No.
It's always the girl that looks like, that's interesting. I've never seen that before. And then that obligatory cut to the woman like with this face on.
Yep.
Or the same thing with Keenan Thompson.
Yep. Every sketch.
Every sketch is the same thing. A sketch that doesn't have anywhere to go, and then it just ends altogether. You know how much a writer makes on a weekly basis, or a performer there? They make over $20,000 an episode. $20,000. It's all built in within the scale, what you do if you appear. Even if you don't, A.D. Bryant still got paid for that episode she didn't do.
Right.
They
get paid if they're on the show or not.
On the show or not. Yeah. But she had to make, again, if you don't make a stink, you don't get noticed. If you do make a stink, that's how you get noticed.
They say
that's the big
difference. A lot of
difference.
people who worked there, it's in the book, didn't enjoy the time they worked there.
Isn't that something?
Because it's too much of a cutthroat atmosphere.
Yeah, right.
Or everybody's trying to get their ideas and their material. They want to get the airtime.
It's like working with cops.
And
the worst part about it is all the cops.
It's not healthy. Julia Dreyfuss didn't like her time there.
Right.
Remember Mary Gross?
Yeah, sure.
Michael Gross's sister, I think. From Family Ties.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And
interesting.
And she was in the Eddie Murphy years.
I liked him.
She was one of the female.
I saw him as a
performers.
bad guy in a TV movie. I think he was a bank robber. It was really weird.
I loved him on Family Ties.
Oh, he was awesome.
So funny.
Yeah, he was. And by the way, Meredith Baxter, what was her
Meredith
name?
Baxter, Bernie, for a while.
Yeah,
and
because
then
she was,
dropped the Bernie.
Yeah, right. She was married to. He was an actor too.
David Bernie,
David
yeah.
Bernie, good-looking guy. She was gorgeous, and she was a great actress. And she also played that crazy woman that killed her husband, her ex-husband, and his girlfriend.
Betty Broderick's story, I think.
And I've seen the documentary.
movie, yeah.
She played that to it. Again, it's just great to see middle-of-the-road actresses who play housewives and sitcoms and whatnot. But the one that comes to mind is Elizabeth Montgomery. As one of again, as a kid watching the reruns at noon, I would come home from St. Thomas Apostle and put on Bewitched. It was the greatest thing in the world. And of course, I was a big fan of I Dream of Jeannie. To this day.
Oh, absolutely.
To this day, Oz.
Beautiful.
I still think the most, other than Marilyn Monroe is Barbara Eden is no doubt the most beautiful television iconic actress ever. I mean, I hated her outfit as the genie. I just thought it was goofy.
Yeah.
But later on in the show, when she was wearing the late 60s miniskirts, when she married Anthony Nelson,
Yep.
I don't think you can get more beautiful than that. Same thing with Elizabeth Montgomery.
Yep.
Her face, her body, her acting, both of them, just to see them. But Elizabeth Montgomery, for a TV movie back in the 70s, early 80s, I think it was late 70s, she played Lizzie Borden. Did you see it by any chance?
I think it was 75-ish.
You're probably right. And here it is, this beautiful mother of, it wasn't Pebbles. What was her name? What was the girl's name?
Tabitha.
Tabitha, thank you. Lisa Hartman, was that her later on in life? Or it was someone else?
It wasn't. It was Aaron Murphy.
Is that who it was? Okay, I got it.
And then I think it was the spin-off Tabitha. That was Lisa.
Okay,
Hartman.
gotcha. So I mixed that up. But Elizabeth Montgomery played the most nefarious, most notorious killer of the 19th century. It was the crime of the century at the latter part. It was in 1891, I believe, in Massachusetts somewhere. And she played the role, and I was shocked because, you just see this woman playing Bewitched, and now she's an axe murderer, and she's getting away with it and so forth. So I loved her. So, but where was my point? Where was I going with this, Oz? Now I'm forgetting where. Oh, no, I was. I just wanted to say how everyday actors and actresses played mean roles. And Michael Gross played a bank robber, and he did a very good job of that. There's some people that were just meant to play bad guys. And even if they were good guys, we talked about Vic Morrow, for instance, who was a good guy in Rat Patrol, but he was better as a bad guy because he looked like a bad guy.
It's a Twilight Zone, the movie segment.
Yeah, and of course that changed everything.
That is so politically incorrect. It's
it's all
amazing.
What, that episode of him? Yeah. Well, yeah, and it was a Twilight Zone written by John Landis. He wrote that about the bigoted guy that wound up going back to the Nazi era as a Jew, and he was a Vietnamese Southern
treated
during
treated like every race that he hates.
That he hated. And that opening scene, and I saw that with my buddy. That opening scene when he goes into the strip mall and that bar somewhere out in Los Angeles, which have that typical 80s place where they went there for happy hour, and he comes in with a bad attitude.
Yeah.
We're talking about Vic Morrow, who I thought was a great actor. He just had that look on his face and the way he talked. And
tough guy.
Boy, and he wasn't the biggest guy in the world, but he was tough. And he was
old school.
Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. He was crazy in that, and he was in a helicopter scene in that movie for like half the movie. He's in the helicopter, and the helicopter's flying around like. This is before OSHA got involved. This is before things got involved. So he goes out to the set somewhere at 2 o'clock in the morning. John Landis and the crew purposely did it at a time where they wouldn't get in trouble.
Yeah.
Where they did this, orchestrated this incredible, horrible shot. Worst case scenario was about to happen. Here it is. He's got 2 kids underneath his arms. He's going over a swamp with 2 feet of muddy water. He's getting stuck in it. And they have explosives all over the place. A helicopter above him. And the explosives shoot up into the propellers, and it comes right down on him, killing him instantly.
The footage of that
changed everything.
Pretty horrific.
It's awful. And to see the guys running out into the pond, they knew right away there's no way he could have survived
to
that.
Connect that with something else we talked about, John Landis directed that segment of the movie.
Yeah.
And
like I said, I believe he wrote it.
And I also read that John Landis had like a falling out or has never forgiven Eddie Murphy for not standing up for him at the trial for that Vic Morrow
Interesting.
Because they had worked together on Trading Places and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he thought Eddie would be like a character witness for him, and Eddie wanted to distance himself from all that, and he did. And John Landis apparently he's never forgiven him for it.
But didn't John Landis direct another Eddie Murphy movie after that?
Let's see. The Twilight Zone movie was 83.
83, yeah.
So that was Trading Places year.
Yeah.
John Landis didn't work with him again until.
So he worked with him though after that. So they must have talked to each other to some degree.
It would have been 5 years later with Coming to America.
Coming to America. So.
And then in '94 again for Beverly
He
Hills
didn't need
Cop
him.
3.
The bottom line, he didn't need him because he got acquitted because he was a
did.
celebrity. But the most, really, when it comes right down to it, other than what happened during the making of Ben-Hur, where I believe 3 men died making that movie, that was just reckless. I mean, the chariot races were just absurd.
That's quite a sequence.
They didn't have CGI, of course, back in the day, and this is flat. This is right out of World War II. So the regard for safety and understanding, and men did crazy things, and that was Hollywood. It was accepted. But what they did to Vic Morrow was just the worst thing that ever happened in Hollywood. Wouldn't you agree? That's got to be the worst.
I
thing.
would say so.
That's got to be the worst thing that ever happened, other than stuff that we don't know about Harvey Weinstein. Although we're finding out more about him and his his prowess, his inability to keep his pants on without any testicles. By the way, that's interesting. But now he's in jail and he's living a horrible life. So you got to ask the question, Harvey, was it worth it, Oz?
I mean, you can see a lot of that, his company, a whole lot of hits.
Yeah, huge hits. And not to mention, of course, they mocked Bill Cosby. Here it is. I'm picking on Saturday Night Live for not doing enough. This past week, they picked on Bill Cosby I don't know if
and
you
it's
saw
funny
it.
because
It was pretty
they have
funny.
Keenan Thompson plays Bill Cosby in any sketch they do.
Right.
And Bill Cosby pretty much would have picked him to play Fat Albert
Right.
in the movie Fat Albert.
Right.
And
Which he did.
Which he did.
Yeah. And again, he was bigger back then. I think he's lost weight, but
He has,
perfect.
yes.
Did you ever see the Fat Albert movie? I never saw it.
I never saw it because nothing's going to beat the cartoon.
No, yeah, I know. Yeah. So, and then I think Bill Cosby did most of the voices, if not all of them.
On the cartoon he did, yeah. Pretty much all of them.
And then they would cut back to him, and it's like, well, now the boys are not. There would be a moral.
He'd
to
tell you the
story.
moral of the
Yeah,
story at the end.
Yeah, and then Rudy was the one Rudy was the badass. He was the one with the derby, with the leather hat. He kind of had the squinty eyes,
Mush mouth and
Russell.
Dumb Donald.
Dumb.
And these are all based on friends of Bill's when he grew up as a kid in
Philadelphia. Yeah. Did you know? I just found this out. Jack Klugman's from Philadelphia. I didn't know.
I didn't know that either.
And comedian, Jewish guy, big nose. He died like 8 years ago. He was a comedian. Good guy. I'm just forgetting everybody today.
I'll know who it is if you give me something.
He did a lot of. He sat in for Carson quite a bit.
David Berner.
David Berner. Thank you very much. From. Very intelligent guy too. Almost died broke because his health.
He was a pretty good stand-up.
Yeah, he was a great stand-up. He was a great. He did something. He did. Remember, ring around the collar. Ring around the collar. Ring around the collar. He was 6 foot, whatever, tall, lanky guy, and that kind of. He looked like Noodles in a way.
And he was almost like a Seinfeld back in that time.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. And just the way. Remember the whisk commercials? Ring around the collar, and then the husband looks at the wife and says, "You dog." And it's so true because we were so sexist. I mean, it was
because it was almost like Seinfeld's the next David Brenner.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, not everything, but
everything is
ways.
timing. I mean, they look back at all the billionaires and the generation of the year, for instance, that they were born, and you can see a pattern. You can see like J.P. Morgan was born in 1890, whatever it was. And then you move into the 20th century and you see 1954, 1955 was a huge year. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. So here's my point. My point is there's a lot of potential billionaires out there right now, geniuses that could have been big in either industry or entertainment or sports. They were just born the wrong year.
Yeah, right.
And there's a lot of them that are centric, like Elon Musk. If Elon Musk was born 40 years ago, he'd be successful at something, but he wouldn't be Elon Musk. So I say, and then same thing with Bill Gates. Now Bill Gates is in a ton of trouble. I don't know if you've been reading up about him lately, but
in his pending divorce.
That's going to be a big divorce. I don't really care, but the aspect of him doing that whole same time next year thing, or the Alan Alda, Neil Simon movie. Did you hear about that?
No.
What do you?
I know the movie, but
yeah, no, and that's the first thing that comes to mind because he had the permission right when he got married to Melinda. Was it Melinda?
I think
Matilda?
that's her
What was
name.
her name?
Well,
Matilda is Chris Cuomo's, Andrew Cuomo's mother's name.
Yeah,
mother.
right.
So they get married in 1987 or somewhere thereabouts. And there's an agreement that he can still go every year on a weekend trip to meet his old 80s girlfriend.
Wow.
Which is same time next
Yeah,
year.
right.
Of course, same time next year. They did it secretively. No one knew where they were going. They thought he was going to a Shriners meeting or something. I forget what it was. But doesn't that seem kind of weird? Not to mention, he definitely had association with Jeff Epstein as well.
Alan Alda and Ellen Burstyn.
Ellen Bernstein, yeah. And it's funny because you look at that movie, what was the name? At the same time next year. And then what year? What year did that come?
70.
No, probably later on. And then it's funny because, Annie Hall comes out in 1977,
Yep.
wins Best Picture. It's the same movie. I mean, it's not going to a retreat every year, but Diane Keaton's character in the beginning, la-di-da, and she meets up with this intellectual guy, otherwise known as Woody Allen. I don't know his name in the movie.
Alfie or something
yeah,
like
and
that.
of course, who is his friend with the guy who looked like Will Ferrell?
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. Have you slept with her yet? You would always ask that question.
Good Tony Roberts right there. Not bad at all, Glenn.
And he also looked like the guy who played Beauty and the Beast.
Ron Perlman.
He looks like Ron Perlman.
That's brilliant. A cross between Ron Perlman and Will Ferrell. Tony Roberts. Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
Here's my impersonation of a seal.
just look up their two pictures and put them together. You got Tony Roberts.
I do that very well, by the way. If you pick me up, I can tell you, I look at people on the streets and say, you look like someone and someone. And of course, they look at me like I have two heads. And maybe they're right. I
Well,
shouldn't be
and then
doing that.
Annie Hall was Diane Keaton's Oscar.
Did she win an Oscar for that? Now, around the same time, a year or so later, she did Looking for Mr. Goodbar.
I
which a
finally
lot of
saw
people-
that in the last few years. Boy, that's something. The ending to that is something else.
Yeah, Richard Gere kills her in the dark.
Tom Berenger.
Was it Tom Berenger? Oh, I thought really? Are you serious? Huh? You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't even know Tom Berenger was in it.
Yeah.
Okay, but Richard Gere's in it.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't know if Richard Gere's in it?
I know it's Tom Berenger.
Not Richard.
is
Gere,
in-
not Richard Gere. Sorry. No. I'm right.
He may be one of the men, but
Wait a
I
minute.
remember. You better look it up.
Yep, we
I
gotta
remember
look it up.
Tom Berenger being the guy at the end.
Okay. Well, let's do.
Looking for Mr. Goodbar is also 77, same year as Annie Hall.
Is it really? All right. So we're looking for. Usually, when you put in the title like that, it pops up right away. Here it is. Looking for Mr. Goodbar, 1977. Let's go to the cast.
Richard Gere may be in it, but so is Tom Berenger.
All right,
Very early role
Diane
for him.
Keaton.
Just talk amongst yourselves.
Stay on Oz for a bit.
Okay, so looking for Mr. Goodbar, 1977, and we're trying to figure out if it's Tom Berenger who is I think he was the killer at the end of the movie. I only saw the movie once. Richard Gere may be in it though.
Yeah, no, I know he's in it, and he plays a badass.
But
Sorry
the
about
final
that.
scene.
Thank God we have a bathroom in here now.
Final scene.
Richard Kiley is in
Richard
it.
Kiley.
Richard Gere's in it. Tom Berenger's in it. I didn't know that. Interesting.
He's the guy at the end.
He's the guy. Okay, I always thought it was Richard Gere who kills her at the end, but I was
And
mistaken.
that final shot
Yeah,
of her face,
yeah.
the way they do that at the end is one of the most disturbing things I think I've ever seen.
And why? I can't recall. Tell me what happens. Is she dead or what?
She is dead, or I believe she's dying,
Yeah.
or has just died.
So,
and the way the camera
Yeah.
stays on her face, and I think they pull back very slow, and the way it's lit.
Isn't there a fan that's flickering or
There's
something in the
some
night?
kind of lights,
Yeah, something
blue lights.
yeah.
The way it's lit,
in her
and the way
apartment.
the shot.
Yeah.
They pull back, and the look on her face.
Yeah.
Eyes are open. It's
So what's the
disturbing.
moral to the story? If you're going to be a slut, you're going to pay the price because
I
that's
think
what
so.
she was very promiscuous.
Yeah, because she
she
like,
was a
hadn't
school
been
teacher.
she hadn't been before, but
Right.
decided to be a little more liberated or
Yeah,
whatever.
and again, I mean, hey, a really gutsy movie, 1977, like you said. A dedicated school teacher spends the nights cruising bars looking for abusive men with whom she can engage in progressively violent sexual encounters. Is this the, I mean, why did they make this movie? I mean,
it was I think it was a book first,
was it? Oh, I'm sure it
and
was.
I think it was a true story.
Oh, was it really?
Goodbar Killer
Oh, interesting.
was the story I heard.
Huh. Tuesday Weld, I mentioned that. Yeah, so yet another movie that a lot of people today, particularly young people, never heard of. Diane Keaton was gorgeous. She's
Never-
one of the
yes,
best
she-
actors.
yes, she was.
One of the best actresses ever. I have a young kid who shows up here every Thursday. He's going to be here this Thursday, and he talked at length about Diane Keaton, but more recently did Glenn Close. Glenn Close was a featured actress, great actress. But here, again, we have so many demure, petite women. Most of them are British, and they go on these talk shows, and The View or The Talk, and they come on. I have no idea who the hell they are. And again, that's a sign of my. But again, I can't imagine that they. I'm not saying that. I don't want to discredit people just because I don't know who they are. But I can't imagine that the level of acting is as any good as what we're accustomed to with someone like Glenn Close,
Right.
Meryl Streep. I mean, I know you got to say Meryl Streep's name at least once because she's. And my computer just died. I didn't plug it in. Again, I just don't. Who is the Meryl Streep of our time right now?
Oh,
Oz?
that's a good question. That's a very good question.
I don't think it exists.
You can go see what's her name in the new Cruella movie.
Who's that?
That's coming out. What's her red hair? She won an Oscar.
Oh, I don't. Yeah.
Why am I not remembering this?
Again, Uma Thurman is the only one I know.
Disney's making the
Cameron
movie
Diaz.
about Cruella, the character from 101 Dalmatians.
Yes,
Now it's a live action movie
Yeah,
with her as the star. Emma Stone.
Emma Stone.
is the character. And
And-
Emma Thompson's in the movie.
Is that her mom? Wait, no.
I don't know who she plays in the movie.
So the girl, okay. It's funny that you should just bring this up because this was like the other day, and I was getting to this earlier. This movie was 1978. It was called The Fury. I don't know if you ever heard of it. And we talked about it. Stella
Brian De
Stevens'
Palma.
son. Yeah. Brian De Palma directed that?
Yep.
Did he really? Oz, it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Douglas.
Kirk Douglas is in it.
Andrew Stevens.
And Amy Irving's in
Yes,
it.
yes.
Amy Irving, who's like 80 pounds, soaking wet, and she's a beautiful woman.
Yes.
And I know she had a child or two with Spielberg. I don't think they ever got married though. Did they?
They were married.
They were married.
They were married.
But they got divorced.
Yes.
But she was just gorgeous, and she was another one. She was in Carrie. She was in other movies, but you never saw her after that. I guess she just wanted to become a housewife or maybe producer. Not to discredit these people for not acting, but I thought she would have had a much better career.
Carrie was 76, and
Right.
the lady who plays her mother in Carrie is her mother.
Is her mother in real life?
Actual mother.
Yeah, and again, the Carrie, of course, Brian De Palma. I didn't realize Brian De Palma did The Fury. Oz, The Fury is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It's a horrible, horrible movie. John Cassavetes is in it. The storyline makes no sense. Kirk Douglas shouldn't have been in it at all.
It's a wonder he did something like that.
Yeah, and he's walking around in his underwear. He's crawling off buildings like he's Spider-Man, and it's like, no, this is a really bad movie. And the effects weren't all that good either. It was about supernatural abilities to blow things up, and it's just. Yeah, it just didn't add
I
up.
know the film, and I've seen clips of it, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
But the
I've
reason
never
why I
seen
bring
the
it
whole
up,
thing.
the reason why I bring it up is because I brought it up with my friend because we were talking about it. I said, "Hey, did you know that Andrew Stevens was Stella Stevens' son?" He said, "Oh yeah, he was in that movie with Kirk Douglas." I go, "Which one was that?" I go, "Something about blah blah blah." Is that The Fury? He goes, "Yes, it was The Fury." Same day it was on TV, and I hadn't seen it for over 35 years. Not that it mattered, but something came up earlier during this discussion. Where it's amazing how you don't talk about something, a movie or book or someone that you know forever, and yet you talk about it one day and a moment later you either see that person or you see the movie. It's amazing how that works out. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I
about
mean, you bring up Amadeus today, and I was just reading about it for about
Right,
15 minutes yesterday.
Yeah, and one of the greatest movies ever made. Now, I heard Amadeus took forever to get up here because at the time the mall hadn't been built yet. So
It would have went to the Stateway Cinemas.
It was Stateway Cinemas, and they had to fight. I know the late, great Gordy Silverthorne is no longer with us. They had to fight to get the movie up here so they could...
That was...
I think they played it right over here at the
It was
Olympic.
84 was when Amadeus came out.
84.
And the mall didn't come around until 86.
87. Yeah, and I know that only because I was graduating Oswego, and I was with my then fiance who was from here, and they kept we're getting a new mall, and inevitably, of course, I moved up here November 13th of 1988, and I've been up here ever since. And that's a famous day. Do you know what November 13th is in TV land? November 13th, significant day, and it's in a very,
better
very...
tell me.
Okay, it is the day that Felix Unger was asked to remove himself from his house on November 13th.
right.
And then he went in with his
But you weren't a fan of the new Odd Couple.
with hey, and by the way, Friends Reunion is coming out. So, and the guy that was in the Odd Couple that you just talked about, a total disaster. One guy, his last name was Lemon. He played the Felix character. The TV reboot of you might be talking about the one with Damon Wilson.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, they did another one on CBS. Like
Yes,
4 or
they
5
did. You're right.
And his last name was Lemon, and then the other guy was from Friends, the drunk. I hate to
Matthew
refer-
Perry.
Matthew Perry. So they have a clip of
He was the Oscar.
He was the Oscar.
Yes. They did redo it again. You're right.
Oz. It was. First of all, it's amazing how Hollywood is as stupid as it is with all the millennials running it right now. They have this, again, they lived on the Upper West Side. 1049 was the apartment. It was just, your typical New York City, nice upscale apartment, but it wasn't anything extravagant. You look outside, they had the window scheme. These were real writers, most of which came from the Broadway mindset. And
Yes.
remember, it was shot out in California, but these were New Yorkers. Neil Simon, all those types of people, although Simon had virtually nothing to do with the show. It was Gary Marshall and the other guys, Jerry Paris and whatnot.
Yeah.
But they were smarter then. So they recreate the show like 5 years ago with Matthew Perry and the other dude, and they're in this apartment right across the street from the Empire State Building. The Odd Couple didn't live, and they lived in Manhattan. I get it. They lived in a nice place, but they had to put the obligatory Empire State Building. This is New York. You don't have to do that.
No.
You don't have to have an apartment that looked like Mary Tyler Moore's second apartment. It's ridiculous. Although I liked her first apartment with the sunken living room, but that's neither here nor there. So, but they have this beautiful apartment. They had all this Odd Couple type of thing. He's the slob and he's not.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close. And it's another example of how remakes and reboots just don't make it anymore.
How many do you need? Magnum PI? I mean, come on.
And Hawaii Five-O.
Hawaii Five-O.
The FBI.
Is it the CW? Kung Fu, but now it's a woman.
Yeah. What about Queen Latifah in The Equalizer?
Right.
Terrible. I mean, it's just terrible.
I mean, I remember the show.
Yeah, I actually, it's
I think it was
funny.
the 85 season.
Yeah, with the British guy.
Edward Woodward.
That was, it was good. But here's the other thing is, then you get the two Equalizer movies with Denzel Washington, which is fresh in everyone's mind.
Yes.
And they're ridiculous, but I watch them because it's Denzel Washington. But
I have both of them. Yeah,
how he anticipates what's going to happen next.
Yes,
and
that's pretty cool.
Checks his watch, and those idiots in the Boston that say, "Oh, you picked the wrong place, old man," or something, and they beats the crap out of him. And you just like seeing that.
Oh, yeah.
You like seeing bad,
That's great.
good against bad. But Queen Latifah is not the answer. You don't get Denzel Washington to beat up this guy and that guy and then do a somersault and beat up this guy and knock him over the head and then walk out unscathed and look at his watch. And then a couple years later, you have that same character portrayed by fucking Queen Latifah,
Yeah.
a mother of two kids who going through puberty.
What are
That's
the
not
odds that's
answer.
back next season?
I guarantee it's going to be back next season because it's It's on Sunday night. It's on after 60 Minutes, I think. It's on Sunday night, so that's a big show. That's a big slot, and I bet you it will make it. There's no doubt. It shouldn't, but I bet you it will. And again, the other shows that we've seen remakes in recent years. Well, we mentioned it, but yeah, Magnum PI was just awful. And again, FBI was before my time, but watching that movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, they make a big deal about the FBI because the FBI was a big show. Hawaii Five-O was a big show. CBS shows, particularly on Friday and Sunday nights, those are the shows like how you anticipated Saturday Night Live. They waited for those shows.
Oh yeah.
But now it's like, oh. So anyway, it's the degradation of Hollywood, lack of talent. Remakes are horrible. I think the best example is the remake from Chocolate Factory. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1973 or somewhere.
It was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory at 71.
Yeah, 71. Okay, gotcha.
Then remade with Johnny Depp
With 2000
with a different title.
with a different. Well, yeah, but it was the original. Actually, it was the original book title.
Yes.
And apparently, from what Joe Brosk was telling me, is it was closer. The second one was closer to the book. I said, well, then the book sucked, because if you don't do that. Just like I said about Denzel Washington, if people are fresh in their minds that the Equalizer looks at his watch first before he kills people,
Yes.
you have to translate that into the show. You just can't call it the Equalizer after seeing Denzel Washington kick ass on half
just
the
put a
planet,
woman in the part.
and then put Queen
Yeah.
Latifah in there.
Yep.
You just can't do it. So it's the same thing with Willy. Everyone knows Willy Wonka for the movie that was portrayed in 1971.
Yep.
With the young kid Peter Ostrom, who never did another movie after
Right.
that, lives about 30 miles south of where we are right now as a veterinarian in Lewis County. God bless him. And Gene Wilder's performance is just epic. And I don't just say that because it's Gene Wilder, but you watch that movie, that portrayal of a crazy man that owns a factory. And by the way, there's a TV commercial out for something with a Willy Wonka guy sliding down. Have you seen that lately?
No.
It's a good looking commercial, but the guy who plays Willy Wonka is like he's fucking sleepwalking. He's terrible.
There was so
I
many
can't understand a
people
word he says.
that were going to be up for that role.
Really?
Before Gene Wilder took
Really?
it.
Who else would have?
Oh, it's the whole list.
And yet it was a sleeper. It was a low budget movie. I remember Peter Ostrom was saying when they were handing out photos of themselves, they were photocopies from the copy machine. They couldn't even afford glossies. So when they did the publicity with Jack Albertson,
Yes.
real people, real actors, and that's. But anyway, the music, the Loompa Oompas, and then Tim Burton comes out with the remake, and it's the same Loompa Oompa done a million times with CGI effects. All the music was changed. The guy who played Jack Albertson looked like he was already dead, and the kid who played, what's his name? What's the kid's name? I should know this because it's Charlie.
I was going to say Charlie.
The kid who plays Charlie is not even close to the Peter Ostrom character, who I actually thought was Lance Kerwin, who was Lance. Remember that show, Lance at 16,
And he was also in Salem's Lot.
Salem's Lot, which again
Scared the shit out of me when I was about 4 years old.
I think Joe Dante directed that. Did
Toby
he not?
Hooper.
Toby Hooper. I get them mixed up. It's funny. Recently, I thought I was a big man on campus on one of those Facebook sites. Oh yeah. Joe Dante directed that. No, it wasn't. Who's this? Oz?
Yeah, that was. We could do a whole thing on Salem's Lot.
Because you got to know what you're talking about when you're online.
Oh, yeah,
when you're on the. I made a couple mistakes. I'm on two different sites for The Odd Couple, And you better be on top of stuff. I said one line wrong. Oh, no, it's not what Oscar said. He said it this way. Oh, okay. Jeez. You took the fun out of fun there, my friend. Well, anyway, we've been talking a lot, Oz. A lot of things here over an hour, almost an hour and 20 minutes,
Lord,
believe it or
okay.
not. So this was good. This is posting on Facebook. Check that on YouTube. But I'll have it all ready to roll. And because I've recorded each and every sound here, we didn't record there, but it looks like the audio levels are looking good. So everyone, I would have had a public square for you, but I unplugged my computer, but we're just going to have to end it here. This was the second time to be, rather, in the studio with Oz.
Thank
here
you, sir.
At the
Very
H2O
much.
Studios. Thank you. Talking about Hollywood, talking about things that matter to us, at least, and perhaps to you. We hope you enjoyed it. And for more of, we'll post this later on the Live at 5 show with Glenn Curry. And hopefully you will enjoy this and other shows coming up here from the H2O Studios. Until then, you have a great night, everybody. Thanks, Oz.
Thank you.